Hi everybody, Renegade68 here with some more Let's Play Ace Attorney Investigations, Miles Edgeworth, Prosecutor's Path Blind. So last time, kinda hit a wall. You see that HP gauge of mine, it's not doing so hot. So hopefully this time, we don't game over 100 times? Maybe like 10? No more than that, hopefully. So yeah. I believe I already pressed everything, and all I have left to do is present. I actually probably should have checked to double check. I don't remember if I pressed everything. No, yeah, I definitely did. That's right. Because I got this new statement. I relayed everything to Karen. Remind me again what Edgeworth says. It doesn't look like Granny is lying. Miss Jensen is the one who is relaying Dr. Young's words. Oh, by the way, someone mentioned in the comments, what was it? The nickname, because the Karen part is like caring, but it's not just Karen. Because if you look at the Jensen part, it's kind of like a play on like ejection, sort of. So if you take the caring and turn it into care in, it turns into care injection, and she loves the injections. So I guess that kind of makes sense. Anyways, I'll have to confirm whether or not Miss Jensen is telling us the truth. Okay. No mistakes in Granny's autopsy report. I've been working with corpses longer than you've been alive. I realized everything to Karen. After that, it was none of my beeswax. Nothing to gain from falsifying the autopsy report. See, there's nothing strange at all. I like that part about how you said, I remember you saying something like, the blow to the head killed him, or something. And that seems silly. Everything to Karen. I feel like it's definitely this statement. After that was none of my beeswax. Let me check the autopsy report again. Victim's body was discovered in the PIC meeting room. Cause of death was stab wounds to the left chest with a candelabra. Head wound was post-mortem. Burn mark on victim's hand. Let me just try this. It might not work, but let me try it. No? Oh, yes! Oh! I thought that's what it was last part, actually. Oh man, if I was more confident, I should have tried that, because I could have recorded for like 10 more minutes or something, but I didn't want to bother if I was just going to get a bunch of game overs, but I wasn't going to get a bunch of game overs. Oh wow. Anyways, Dr. Young, please confirm what this autopsy report says with your own eyes. Ah, I'll read it out for you. Ouch! Oh, the old lady is sweating. Now she's hitting her more than once in a row. If the autopsy report wasn't written by me. What? What do you mean? Ow! Always with the hurt. She finally hits back. Oh, and she's sweating too. I don't know. Ow! But Granny, I can't say that. So, is that where we're going with this? She's, like, evil? Karen is evil? Is that where we're going? Maybe. Miss Jensen, if you are trying to keep the truth in the dark, then... in place of the goddess of law, I shall hear your confession. Judge Courtney is talking with Dr. Young in private. Oh. Wait, what? She said, if... Miss Jensen, if you're keeping the truth in the dark, I'll hear your confession in private. But now it's saying you're talking with Dr. Young in private. That's confusing. What? Is that true? Understood. I shall convey your words to everyone else, Dr. Young. Oh? Are you going to say that Jensen is a lying bitch? I properly relayed the autopsy report orally to that child. Okay, so either she's an idiot, or she wrote it wrong on purpose. It seems my granddaughter must have mucked it up when she was writing it down. Wow, she mimicked your voice perfectly. Oh, did she? Oh, okay. It seems she must have mucked it up when she was writing it down. I hadn't realized. I didn't realize, Justine was so good at mimicking voices. There was no need for her to go that far, though. That reminds me of, Godot, slash Godot, whatever you want to call him. I was calling him Godot from the start. I mean, later on people were like, it's Godot! And I'm like, I think it's gotta, whatever. But anyways, back to Godo whatever from TNT. He was doing that a lot. Whenever he was making a point, he'd mimic the witness. And their theme song would typically start playing too, which added to the funny effect. In other words, the contents of the autopsy report had been falsified. By your hand, Miss Jensen. Oh, With that, we've proven that the wound on her hand came first. Head, not hand. Hand, head. Basically the same thing, right? Not very different. Came first, followed by her chest wound. Miss Jensen, why did you falsify the autopsy report? Oh? Hold on a second. She never said she falsified it, you know. She could just be a dumbass like my son. She just made a teeny tiny mistake when she wrote it down. Post-mortem and antemortem sound kind of similar, you know. Post-mortem and antemortem? I suppose... Not when you're hearing them with words. Like, post and ante sound very different. And besides, she said the head wound came first. And if that's the case, then antemortem doesn't even work there either. Also, I've never really heard antemortem before. I didn't even know that was a term. But antemortem, I assume, means comes before death. But they're saying the head wound was the death, which is completely different. They're complete opposites. That is the very definition of falsification. Miss Jensen, why would you lie? Okay, ouch! I want you to tell me, too, why you would do something like that, huh? Granny, but Because you falsified the autopsy report, Kay fell under suspicion. So much pission. Tell me why you did it! I can't say. I just can't say it. Because you were ordered to by Blaze? Not I don't want to say it, but I can't say it? You're all a bunch of bullies, you know. Ganging up on this poor girl who loves her grandmother so. She's totally unrelated to this. I think we can forgive her for one tiny mistake. That won't do. Aren't you the one with the most to lose if she testifies? Huh? What are you saying? You see, as a former prosecutor, you'll have to speak a little more clearly, you know. Very well, as you wish. I shall answer clearly. Miss Jensen played an essential role in this case. She was the true culprit. She was the victim. No, she was an accomplice. Okay. I'm very certain it's this. If not, I'm gonna have to go through all this again. Okay, how certain am I it's this? Okay, how certain am I it's this? I'm like 99.9% certain it's this. I'm 100% certain it's not she was the victim. I know it's this, but there's the tiniest speck of me that thinks, what if the game was wording things weirdly? What if the English translation maybe worded things weirdly, and this turns out to be wrong? Fuck it, I gotta save state. Oh, I'm a pussy, I'm sorry. Okay, she was an accomplice. If this is right, I'm gonna hit myself, but I'm also gonna be like, oh right, I'm right, but I don't know. It's a duology feeling, it really is. Miss Jensen falsified the autopsy report in order to assist the true culprits. Okay, so I was right. Good. I thought I was right, but I had to be sure. Ow! Ha ha ha! That girl's the accomplice? What's your basis for that claim? It was impossible for a single person to commit this crime in the first place. The crime could not have been committed without at least two people, namely because the victim couldn't have been moved, the number of people wouldn't match, the report couldn't have been faked. I'm not gonna bother save stating here, even though I think this is the harder question, but just because I already save stated like a couple sentences ago, so it's not a big deal. Alright, the victim couldn't have been moved. Pretty sure the victim could have been moved. The number of people wouldn't match. I assume they're talking about the number of people on the thing, but I don't think that's it. The report couldn't have been faked. The crime could not have been committed without at least two people, namely because the report couldn't have been faked. The victim couldn't have been moved. Maybe it is the victim couldn't have been moved? I really gotta think about this. The number of people wouldn't match. Maybe it is the number of people wouldn't match. I don't think it's... I really don't think it's the number of people wouldn't match. Could not have been committed without at least 2 people, namely because... I have no idea. I don't know which one of this it is. I want to say the report couldn't have been faked, but that's what we just were saying. Which is why it seems like the weird answer. Like, it would be weird if that was correct, even though it feels like that's the most correct. The victim couldn't have been moved, or the number of people wouldn't match. Like, both of those feel like they might be correct, but I'm not sure which is more correct. The victim couldn't have been moved. I think the victim could have been moved, though. Or wait. Maybe not. No. They could have been moved, sure. And then the number of people wouldn't match. The number of people wouldn't... I'm gonna say the number of people wouldn't match. If the conductor was the culprit, and one of the auction guests was the victim, it would contradict the witness's testimony that there were 11 people after the incident. What now? You got a problem with my testimony? Unfortunately, not right now. Rather, it's because I believe your testimony, unfortunately. That's why an accomplice must exist. Blech, I hate saying those words. So, you still won't admit that your reasoning is wrong? Up until now, we had not even considered the possibility of an accomplice. Which is pretty stupid when you think about it, but okay. However, if there had been an accomplice, it changes the entire story completely. Do explain, Edgeworth. If the accomplice took the murder auction guest's place, then where were they before? They must have been hiding out, somewhere close by, to just take the place so casually. Then the number of people remains 11. You see, I was thinking that, but then it brings up the issue of, okay, but then Karen had to be close by the whole time. If she was going to slip in and take the place, it must have been premeditated. Well, I guess it would have been premeditated. If Blaze recognized the burn mark from something. Maybe it's a burn mark he left with his lighter. I suppose. Which means, yeah, Karen would have had to be close by. But close by where? Maybe hiding in the chest before... Oh, before the victim was put in, she was hiding in the chest? Possibly. Oh, I see now. So that's what you're thinking. But you know, wouldn't that have been quickly discovered? Miss Jensen and the victim have similar physiques. If she wore the victim's mask, she could have easily taken her place. I suppose. Miss Jensen, did you switch places with the victim? Even if she did, she's not gonna admit it. She'll get her ass canned by Blaze. I wouldn't. Who was the conductor? In other words, tell me who was the true culprit. I can't. I mean, that would also cause trouble for Granny. Ouch! But Granny... I'll accept whatever wrongs you may have done. Just tell me everything. Granny? Is that supposed to be a breakdown? Granny! He hit it so much that it just popped out. Pop goes the weasel. As I thought, it appears you really were the accomplice. Is that supposed to be a confession? Like, that's the weirdest breakdown I think I've ever seen, that if that even qualifies as a breakdown. Okay. Miss Jensen, why? There is some sense to be made there, because, I mean, if Jensen found the body, and then Blaze came up to her and was like, that's an interesting body you got there. Mind if I plant these here, and then you say you found them with the body? You can't say no, because I'm the chief of the whatever, and if you do, well, your granny is going down, or something probably could have happened. Anyways, would you please tell us? Yes. It's okay, Granny, I'm fine now. I switched places with the victim, Miss Crane. So you admit to being the conductor's accomplice? Yes, I helped out the conductor. I don't really know why, but for some reason, the conductor was expecting to be attacked by Miss Crane. Ah, so that's the excuse he gave. The conductor expected an attack from the victim. They were so sure it was going to happen that they came up with a plan to counter it. Oh, really? Probably just an excuse, but okay. Way to beat the victim at her own game, and that's when I was called in. I was told to wait in the storeroom before the auction began. Whoa there! You ain't fooling my eyes! She was hiding in the trunk. If you were waiting in the storeroom, I reckon I would have bumped into you. After all, I've been up in that storeroom the entire auction, reckon course. I'm telling the truth. I wonder about that, you know. Can we really believe a girl who would falsify a report? Fucking turn things against her when they don't look good for you. I mean, that is the way of the villain and the way of the enemy, usually. The good enemies. There should have been many places to hide in that storeroom. Then by all means, tell me, where did our little nurse hide? The place in the storeroom where Miss Jensen hid was... Okay, let's go through these one by one. I'm pretty sure I know where it was, but just to be safe, it's not going to be the badge. It's not going to be the mask. It's not going to be a letter. It's not going to be a ticket stub. It's not going to be a purple flower. It's not going to be a Grand Tower... Pamphlet? I don't think it's going to be the Grand Tower pamphlet. It's not going to be Kay's memories. It's not going to be the key card. It's not going to be the candelabra. It's not going to be the autopsy report. It's not going to be the key card record. It's not going to be the victim's letter. It's not going to be the conductor's clothes. It's not going to be Lotta's testimony. It's not going to be the stuffed animal. It's not going to be the masks. It's not going to be Lotta's photo. Well, it might be Lotta's photo. It's not going to be blood hidden on lift. It might be the costume trunk. I think it's the costume trunk. It's not going to be green blood. Let me double check that Lotta's photo. I'm going to go with costume trunk. I think that has to be it. If that's not it, well, then I'm restarting. Thank God. I would have had to go through so much to get back here. But this time I wasn't a pussy. I went for it. She hid inside this costume trunk. Costume trunk, eh? Ah, now you mention it. That box was already there before I snuck in. I figured I'd hide in there myself, but it was wrapped up nice and tight with a chain. And it was locked too, so I had to give it up. I suspect that when you sneaked into the room, Miss Jensen was already inside the trunk. Yes, it would have been bad if one of the guests from the auction had opened the lid. After instructing me to hide inside, the conductor wrapped a chain around the costume trunk. I think they went downstairs using the lift shortly thereafter. It was right before the auction. So then, when the auction began, only you and Miss Hart were in the storeroom. Seems that would be the case. That should be right. The auction had been going on as usual, but when a certain participant made the winning bid, the conductor committed the crime. Miss Hart must have heard the alteration that occurred then. You betcha! I was trembling behind there, a statue that whole time! Following the alteration, Jill Crane was murdered. Red X. After killing Jill Crane, the conductor carried her body to the costume trunk. And Miss Jensen, who had been hiding in the trunk, was made to take Miss Crane's place. The victim's body was placed inside the costume trunk. The conductor then took Miss Jensen, who had been made to look like Jill Crane, and returned to the auction hall as if nothing had happened. Was this roughly what happened in the storeroom during the incident? Yes, that's right. Pulling the old switcheroo with one of them auction guests. Ain't that possible? That gal and the murder victim are two completely different folks, you know. Don't you reckon one of the other participants would have noticed and caused a ruckus? Not if she came back in with the red cloak that she won from the bed. No, not at all. The reason they didn't notice the switch was because she stole the victim's clothes. She used the victim's name. She acted like the victim. She stole the victim's clothes. From what I can tell, Miss Jensen and the victim appeared to have a similar physique. Furthermore, there was a rule requiring a mask to be worn during the auction. If their clothes were the same, I doubt anyone would have noticed she was a different person. Honestly, their hair is pretty different. But if she wore the red hood, then no one would have noticed. Yes, I blended right in. I borrowed Miss Crane's clothes and— Ouch! You mustn't embarrass the dead like that. I know. I also thought it was pretty heartless to leave her exposed like that. So when the conductor wasn't looking, I covered her up in the raincoat that was up for auction. Oh? Okay. Is this something Blaze doesn't know? Possibly. Well, I thought you had to be wearing the raincoat. I think that makes more sense, but whatever. So she was the one who put the red raincoat on the victim.